Hello everyone and welcome to Beginner's Code. Today we will be taking a brief look at using polymorphism with object-oriented programming. Okay, so the last video we looked at using inheritance with classes and how we can actually create two different classes that both use similar things because of a parent class. So in this video, we're actually going to look at polymorphism. Now, polymorphism is a way that we can create lots of different classes that replicate real-world objects, and these real-world objects may have similar methods. So, for example, if we were to look at a computer, a laptop, and a phone, each of them have an on and an off button. They all have very, very similar things, such as a keyboard, whether it's a physical keyboard or a keyboard on a touch screen. They all have very, very similar methods. So this could be sort of thought as like an abstract blueprint of every single one. So what we can actually do is, because we have our own methods created, we can name them with similar naming styles, such as on for on, or off for off, or accelerate if you're if you're speeding a car, and brake if you're slowing down a car. So with this, we can then call them using a very, very small amount of code. So to show what I mean by this is we can create a class, and for example, we'll just call it human. This will take a method which will say speak, and it will just have the self parameter, and this will just print out human says hello. And then we can create a new class that represents dog, and this can also have a speak method. Notice how they're spelled exactly the same, and now we can just print woof. So now that we have two classes both with the same method, we can now create a new function outside of both the classes, which will also be called speak. And this will take in a parameter, which we'll just call obj. And then inside, we will call the object.speak. So when we call this speak method, we're going to be passing in the instance of one of these, and then accessing the method that's attached. So what we can now do is instantiate the classes, so human and d1 for dog. And now we can create a list, so list of things, and this will just be equal to the instance of the human and then the instance of the dog. And now we can call a for loop, so for thing in list of things. And now we can do speak and then pass in thing. And that's because we're calling this function up here, and we are passing in the element of each iteration of the for loop. So now if I save this, head over to my terminal and then Python polymorphism, we now get human says hello and woof. And that is simply because we have only used a for loop and a method to actually access these attributes for each instance. So now we have this rough idea of how we can use polymorphism. Let's look at creating a new way of actually accessing them. So we've originally created this speak method, but we don't actually need to do that. So now if we create two classes, one will just be England, and this will have an initializing method, which will be self, capital, and language. And then we'll just do self.capital is equal to capital, self.language is equal to language, and then we'll have a cap method, which will take in the self parameter, and it will just return an f string that says the capital is self.capital. And now we'll have a language method, and this will just say an f string that says they speak self.language. Now we have this class made for England. Let's do exactly the same but for France. And then we can actually just copy all this information, all this data, and paste it here. And we'll just make sure that everything lines up. And now we can create an instance of both of these. So E1 is equal to England with London and then English, and F1 is equal to France, which is Paris and French. And now if we were to say for OBJ and we'll create a list here, so E1 comma F1, and now we can say obj.cap, and we'll print this, and then we'll say print obj.lang. And now if I were to run this, we now will have the capital is London, they speak English, the capital is Paris, they speak French. So now we have created and shown polymorphism in its easiest way. We can now start to have a quick think about the next video in our object-oriented programming tutorials, which will actually be about abstraction. Now, what you'll notice just from looking at this code is we actually have a lot of duplicated code. Now, we could actually, right now, create a very, very simple base or boilerplate for the rest of our classes. And this is typically what abstraction's used for. However, this isn't the way of doing abstraction. This is just a way of visually representing it. So what we can do is create a country class, and then we can copy all of this information. And if I cut it and paste it to here, and then in the England class, we just put pass. And then in the France class, we also put pass. And that will just allow us to inherit if we pass in the parameters. So now we can actually say England inherits from the country, and so does France. So now when we create an instance of England, it's going to be looking at the country class, and it will just be accessing all of these. So now we can create as many classes as we want. And this makes it a lot easier for us to create classes without having to have the same amount of code that could disrupt our code, make it harder to find bugs, or just slow us down. So if I just add Germany, and then we'll just create a new instance. So G1 is equal to Germany, Berlin maybe. That's really bad because I can't remember that. And then they speak German, and what we'll do is we'll say print. Actually, no, we don't need to. We can keep it at that, but we do need to pass in G1 to the list. And now if I run it, we now have our third printed output. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this has helped your understanding on how we can use polymorphism while replicating real-world objects. In the coming weeks, I will be releasing a free 30 days of Python guide, so make sure you click subscribe to keep up to date. If you liked what we've been through and you want to learn more, please don't hesitate in reaching out to me. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.